How's it going, everyone? It's Gavin from Balls to You, and in this video I wanted to do something a little bit different. In this video, me and a very good friend of mine, Mark Mende from Marcus Jane Reptiles, we had a telephone conversation. We spoke quite a few times, and Mark, for me, is someone who I admire and who I look up to. He's the Obi-Wan Kenobi, if you like, for me, in my eyes, and many other people's eyes, in the ball python industry and hobby. Mark is always, thinking forward, always thinking about, where to go next, always, thinking outside the box. He doesn't sort of follow the trend, which is fantastic. All his animals that he produces are absolutely stellar, and I'm really pleased that Mark agreed to do this, almost like a bit of an interview, where I could sort of record the telephone conversation and bring it to you guys, so you can see exactly, some of the stuff that I get involved with and the people I speak to and what we actually talk about. So I was really pleased that Mark, as always, the true gent, allowed me to record the telephone conversation. This is no way a podcast or anything like that. The quality of the phone call is exactly what it is. It's just a phone call recorded. It is raw, so grab yourself some earphones, grab yourself a coffee, a beer, a glass of wine, whatever you want, sit down, have a chill. We spoke for over an hour, which was fantastic. So I may actually break this video down into 2 segments, just to sort of, so you can have a little bit of a break, come back to it. So I hope you find this interesting. Mark's got tons of knowledge, and he's been around since the early 2000s. But I'm going to let Mark do all the talking. There is loads of history as well that he shares with me, which is always fantastic, seeing where we've come from to where we are now and to where we may be in the future. But Mark is a fantastic gentleman. So sit back, relax, grab yourself a drink, chill, whatever. Hope you enjoy this. Please let me know what you think. Again, this is just a telephone conversation between me and Mark, and I just wanted to share it with you guys. Okay, guys, take care, and I'll see you after this.
Hey, Gavin.
How you doing, Mark? You okay?
Yeah, I'm good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Obviously, Mark, you've been in this industry or hobby for quite a number of years. Actually, how many years have you now been breeding ball pythons?
Well, I bought my first ball pythons technically in the year 2000, and I started producing ball pythons in the year 2002.
Yeah.
And yeah, so that was, it was very difficult in Canada to get ball pythons.
Okay.
And, I did, the Google searches, or was Google even around then? I don't know, but I searched and found all these breeders in the States, and, I wanted normal ball pythons, and nobody would ship me normal ball. And so I kept on searching, and by some twist of fate, up popped this ad for baby ball pythons, and they were literally 30 minutes from my house up the road. And what makes that even more coincidental is the fact that I live in the country. I live in the middle of nowhere. So it wasn't like I was living in the city and I had to jump across the other side of the city or whatever, or downtown to a pet store. This was also equally in the country, and they happened to have some ball pythons. So I was lucky enough to go up there and buy it too. And I literally got hooked immediately.
Okay, so when you first started out, just to give us a fair idea of, what times were like regarding the hobby and the industry at that time, what would you say was the morph of everyone's, top most wanted list, and, some sort of price, so, people can get a fair idea of what stuff was worth in days?
Well, I purchased my first snake in January of 2000, and piebald had been produced first in 1997. Albinos, I believe, were produced in 1992. There were caramel albinos. There were albinos. I'm not sure about lavender albinos. I believe there were some at that point. Ralph was working with them. There were clowns, and pastel jungles. I still call them pastel jungles. That's what they were then. I still call them that now. People call them pastels.
Yeah.
You know, so I'm pretty old school. But, you know, when it came to, okay, I've got, this is my dream snake, it was definitely the piebald.
Sure.
Without question, you know. And, you know, Pete had just produced them. And from what I understand, he was selling pairs for $50,000 US.
Wow.
And yeah, 50,000. And you know, that's the other thing. I'm in Canada. Our dollar is different from the US dollar. At that point, our dollar was worth 64 cents to the US dollar.
Okay.
Right now it's at 79 cents. You know, sometimes we're at par, but that was the lowest it had ever been. So when you're purchasing a snake from the States and you're going to pay $10,000 for it, you end up paying 15,000 Canadian.
Sure.
And that made a huge difference. You know, one of the morphs that I absolutely love, and it'll come as no surprise to anybody that's been on my website, is the caramel albino. That's where I got the orange from. I love the color orange.
Yeah.
And I'm actually sitting on an orange couch right now. But I love the orange, and I love the caramel albino because it was just such a beautiful animal. And to give you an idea of price, I purchased a het caramel albino male hatchling. I paid $4,500 US for it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
About that now. And I say wow a lot. But I made money from that morph, even though, you know, the caramel albino, I mean, it's hard to find them now because they were plagued with kinking and everything like that.
Sure.
As much as there was a lot of that going on, there were 3 different lines of caramel albino.
Okay.
There was the Mark Bell line, there was the Nerd line, and then there was the Janie Malson, the Flora Fauna line.
Sure.
I purchased the Flora Fauna line, and I didn't experience near the kinking. I mean, probably for every 100 caramels, I might have had 3 with kinks.
Yeah.
Whereas other people were saying for every 10, they've got 7 with kinks. So I don't know why I was so lucky. Some people say, you know, it was the incubation temps. Some people say it was the level of humidity within the substrate. You know, Greg Graziani swears that if he incubates caramel eggs at 88 as opposed to 90, he gets no kinks.
Okay.
But they had other issues. Females always slugged out.
Yeah.
And so on and so on. So they've kind of disappeared, and you know, they've been replaced by the Ultramel, really.
Yeah, I mean, for me, I mean, you know, I remember seeing the caramels as well. I mean, you know, with me, you know, like I said, I always had, you know, a normal ball python for years and years. And I remember seeing, you know, the bumblebees and stuff like that. And when we were starting to see, or, you know, you were starting to see issues with the caramels, it was really, you know, it was a shame. You know, it was a beautiful ball. And like I said, I was just really pleased. I mean, I work a lot with the Ultramel stuff. The Ultramel stuff I felt has sort of been kicked to the curb when the banana, because obviously in the UK, dare I say, we are behind people in, you know, yourselves in Canada and in the US. But for me, the Ultramel, you know, like you said, was everything and more, because you didn't have any issues like the caramel had got. It's just interesting to hear you talk about the different lines of the caramel, because probably not many people were aware of the different lines. I'm a big believer in outbreeding and, you know, all that sort of stuff. But yeah, I mean, it's very interesting, Mark, to hear that, you know, that there was different lines, because I think if you go on World of Ball Pythons, I think it doesn't state, it only states one line. So it's very interesting for you to say that, you know, a history lesson, let's say, you know.
Well, yeah, and you know, there's so many backstories to a lot of these morphs, and you know what was interesting about so what I did with the caramel is I ended up then trading. I forget what snakes I traded. I think maybe some Mojave or a Mojave. I think I traded a Mojave male for a caramel male with Brian Sharp. And Brian Sharp was working with the Bell line.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to, you know, introduce a new line, and instead of just working with my own, because one thing that I always did, every recessive mutation that I worked with, the way I went about doing it is I always bought a het male.
Yeah.
I raised the het male. I bred the het male to normal females. I got 50% pos het females. When they were a year old, I would go out and buy the visible morph. So I went and got a visible caramel male to breed to all my 50% het females to produce caramels and to prove them out as being hets. And I did it with absolutely every single recessive morph I'm working with today, other than the Axanthic, the MJ Axanthic, which was a fluke. It just popped out of my collection out of nowhere. But every other morph, I always worked with 50% possible het females.
I mean, stuff like this. I mean, again, you know, I've said many times on my videos, there's no right or wrong way. It's just your way. And sometimes hearing other breeders talk about different things, it's really sort of refreshing, especially how people go about doing virtually and getting the same results, but doing a different technique. Now, what you're saying is, you know, thinking about it, it makes absolute sense. Where, you know, doing that sort of, you know, you're producing not only visuals, but you're also producing hets for those people, and you know they're 100% het, obviously, and you're producing hets for those people who maybe want to get into the project, but haven't got the funds to do so. So it's a nice entry-level way of doing it, you know?
Oh, I had to do it. It was out of necessity because it was a fortune. I mean, when you bought, you know, a het female, you were paying a lot of money for those females. So for me, you know, you think about the Caramel Project, me spending $4,500 US, which was probably 6,500 Canadian. I couldn't afford to go out and buy het females. I had to make them, you know, so I learned quickly how to raise males up and get them breeding their first year.
Yeah.
I did that. I mean, the most expensive snake I ever bought was a spider. I bought it, I'm going to say in 2004, maybe. And I paid $22,000 for it, Canadian. It worked out to be $22,000 Canadian. It was hatched in September. It was breeding by December.
Wow.
I had 7 clutches. I produced 7 clutches from that male. And, you know, I had great success. You know?
Yeah.
And I made more money from that one male, from that investment. And, you know, I know there's some people out there that say, well, you shouldn't be doing it for the money and blah, blah, blah. You know, I just don't. I do it because I'm passionate about it.
Yeah.
And the money comes. You know, it's like you going to work or anybody going to work. If you're really passionate about your job, you feel good about the money you're going to get. But,
Sure.
you know, when you invest $22,000 and your wife is looking at you sideways,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
You have to justify in your head, okay, but if I do this and do this, this will work out. And as a result of that, I mean, I managed, you know, to do very well. Let's put it that way.
I mean,
in 1 year.
I mean, let's face it. I mean, I think for someone who's been doing it for as long as you have, Mark, you know, no one can question your passion. And I think there's some breeders in the UK, and again, this isn't me sort of throwing, you know, or slagging people off, as I say, but I think a lot of the times when we fell behind in the UK was because, let's say, for example, people would breed a pied to a het pied female and produce pieds. People in the UK would continue to do that because they were fetching good money, where people in the US and in Canada, they were actually then taking that pied male and breeding it, let's say, to a pastel, and producing hets for future projects.
Right, yeah.
So I think we sort of, you know, those breeders back then, again, not all of them, but majority of them, and a lot of people who have been in this industry in the UK will say exactly the same thing, because they were making, you know, fetching such good money. And, you know, I do understand it. You know, we fell behind in that context. I also feel that...
But it's not just you that fell behind, and I don't think that a lot of you fell behind. There's a lot of people, period, that fall behind.
Yeah.
Because they do same old, same old, same old.
Yeah.
And if you want to move ahead in this industry, you have to have vision.
Sure.
And if you want to move ahead in any industry, you have to have vision. If you look at all the leaders, you know, Elon Musk, Steve Jobs,
yeah,
you know, Thomas Edison, whoever, they all had vision. They moved ahead. This is no different. We're just playing with different components.
Sure.
And we're lucky because the components are pretty readily available to us. We just need the imagination to put them together. You know, it's like cooking a meal. I'm always blown away by great chefs in the world because they look at different ingredients and they put together something that's truly unique. Whereas some people would just, you know, fry up a steak and cook some potatoes and make some gravy. And, you know, that's it. That's the end of it, right? But there's so many more ways to do things. And that's what's so exciting. And that's kind of what keeps, you know, me going and a lot of the industry leaders going, is because it does allow you to get excited about something. And you know, like the Justin Kavilkas and the Aussie boys of the world, you know, those are the two guys that I basically admire the most. I'm proud to call them my friends.
Sure.
But, you know, they constantly come out with stuff. And I'm always saying, and yet the marathon runner moves further away from the pack. And I use that analogy a lot where, you know, this industry, everybody kind of started in this pack back in, you know, the late 90s. It really kicked in about 2002 when it became a frenzy. That was the Spider era. That was the Pinstripe era.
Yeah.
I mean, you know, rumor has it that Brian made $2.5 million from just that morph alone.
Which you can sort of believe if he was sort of selling them.
Well, he did tell that.
You know?
He did say that to him directly. You know, but what happened since then is the people that have been inventive and the people that have been creative and the people more than anything that have been patient.
Yeah.
Okay? When they start down the path of a certain project, and they go, you know what, it might take me 5 years before I see what I hope to see. Whereas a lot of people will be like, yeah, I'm not going to wait 5 years. You know,
Yeah.
But once those people get there 5 years from now, everybody's going, what?
Yeah.
Seriously? Like, where did that come from? And yet that specific snake was locked in their mind
Yeah.
5 years ago.
Yeah.
And it comes, you know, so it's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, like I said, you know, I've seen, and I presume you have as well, people without passion, their time in this industry or hobby is very short-lived. You know, they're in, they invest, and they go. And again, what some people struggle to understand is, for me, this started out as a hobby, as an interest. You know, I was like a sponge. I absorbed as much information as possible. But the other thing is, like you know as well as I do, there's not many hobbies in this world of ours which we enjoy doing with a passion, which we can actually turn into some sort of like you guys. When I say you guys, I mean you, Justin, you know, Ozzy, where to me, you're like market leaders, and you know, you've actually shown us, you know, that actually if you persevere, you stick at it, you know, there's going to be good, there's going to be bad. You can actually move forward in this hobby and turn it into some sort of, you know, not necessarily a living or a way of living, but you can actually enjoy it and maybe turn it into some sort of income. Where I look at my collection and I think, as long as I can sustain and cover my overheads, as in rodent food, you know, heating, lighting, all that sort of stuff, as long as I can cover my overheads, I'm happy. And I know I'm not going to become a millionaire like what we've just spoke about. Some people did become millionaires back in the day. I wouldn't say it's not there, but it's not what it used to be. But for me, I think you've hit the nail on the head. As long as you stay inventive, stay creative, you know, think outside the box, be patient, you will get paid back dividend, not only regarding, you know, that investment that you've made, because I've certainly made investments like you say you have. However, again, I just think moving forward, there are a lot of people who came into this industry in a rush to make a lot of money, and when it didn't happen, they sort of bailed ship, you know?
Oh yeah, and I saw a lot of them. I mean, the ball python highway is littered with people on the side of the road that have experienced, you know, hard times and bad luck. And the biggest mistake people make is they go into business, they don't grow into business.
I love that analogy of yours. Always. You've said that before, and you're 100% right.
Yeah. And you know, I mean, when I first started, I bought, I think, 15 adult females from Greg Graziani and Pete Call, and I had, I think, 2 males, and that was it. And I started with that, but I made sure that I had rodents that I could feed them. A lot of people, you know, they leave that out of the equation.
Yeah.
They just assume, oh yeah, well, I'll start breeding rats. Well, where are you going to start breeding rats? And you know, it's not that easy. I'm really lucky because everything is done here. I breed my own rodents. I breed my own snakes. I have a special food made for the rodents. It's a rodent chow. You know, I'm involved in every aspect of it. If I had to be a breeder that had to go out and buy rodents, I'd be in big trouble.
Sure.
I mean, I hear that all the time from people, and you see it out there, and it affects the market, because when you have somebody that produces 100 hatchlings, which is easy to do these days, and they can't feed them because they can't get a hold of the right size, fuzzies or pups or whatever, they end up taking them to the shows, and they're so pathetic Yeah. They have to lower the price on these snakes, and then everybody, they look at that snake that's 6 months old and 100 grams, and then they look at your snake that's 6 months old and it's 500 grams, and they go, well, they should be the same price because they're the same snake.
Sure.
Same morph. And they're not. So it's all those inefficiencies and, them not planning things out affects the market. The difference is, as a seller of quality snakes, I'm prepared to sit on a snake for a year if I have to.
Yeah.
Before it sells.
Yeah.
I'm not going to have a fire sale a week later if I don't get somebody wanting that snake. And what you have to realize is, just because you put a snake on the market doesn't mean within an hour there's going to be somebody that wants that snake. It does take some time. So patience is a virtue in that department.
Yeah. I mean, we certainly, I do see or I hear a lot of people when they say, I've had my snake up for sale that I've produced, maybe something, I don't know, like a pastel or a Mojave or something. It's been up for sale now for 2 weeks. I've still had no one buy it. I'm going to lower the price. They'll ask me, have I priced it too high? And I just simply say to them exactly what you've just said. Look, if you're going to produce these animals, you need to be prepared to, sit, like you said, sit on the snake until it does sell. Make sure you produce quality animals, whether that just be a pastel or a Mojave or a spider, go for quality over quantity. Again, like what we said, you've got to, sometimes it's like buying a car. People can see a price of a Jaguar or a BMW or a Mercedes, and then they buy it because it's cheap, but then they forget about the running costs. So,
oh my God, yeah. Tell me about it.
It's exactly the same sort of, yeah, exactly the same sort of, situation. Yes, you can produce these snakes, however, or you can buy these snakes, but are you looking at the long term? You've got to feed them snakes, you've got to house them snakes, you've got to clean them out. And again, sometimes people do bite off more than they can chew. And when you see people who are impatient and they think their animals should sell within 2 weeks of being advertised, and they've done no groundwork, they've done nothing to sort of promote their sale of the animal, let's say, and then they just drop the price. And again, exactly what you said, people will look and say, well, how come his is £20 cheaper or $20 cheaper, let's say, compared to yours. And, I've had it before, I've had people say, that animal, I've seen the same mutation or the same combo that's X amount cheaper. I'm going to go and buy that. And I simply just say, that's fine. Good luck. Hope you turn out all okay. And they end up coming back and going, well, actually, I either bought that snake and it died, unfortunately, or they went to look at the animal and it wasn't on par with mine. So, I think sometimes you've just got to stand by your guns, stand by your animals, and just see it out. And again, patience is a virtue.